Okay, we've got 5 attendees.
All right. Well, I think we'll just take that as a sign we need to get going. You all ready?
Yes.
All right. Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the September 23rd meeting of the Board of Architectural Review Large. My name is Jay White. I am the acting chair for this evening. Other board members with me this evening is Luda Subchuk, James Metters, and Leon Scott. Staff assisting this evening are Lawrence Courtney and Alex Howell. At this point, I can no longer speak extemporaneously, so I'm going to go over these following slides for access, considering that this is a fully virtual meeting. If you're here, you know how to access the meeting. Congratulations. There are limitations on public comment because of this forum, so you would need to use one of the following methods at any BAR meeting to request to speak at a meeting. You'll need to provide this information to the city as it appears on the screen before you by noon the day of the meeting. So if you're here as a public member of the public that wishes to speak on an application here tonight, unfortunately, if you did not submit that request to the city by noon today, you won't have the opportunity to. But just keep that in mind for future board meetings. All right. So next slide, please. All right, so our protocol here is that the staff is controlling the slide presentation, and that includes anything that you had submitted as an applicant by the deadline. And whenever anyone on this recording speaks, and by the way, this is being recorded, please state your name just for clarity and in record keeping. Attendees' videos and microphones have been disabled. If you're going to present, then Alex will promote you as a panelist in Zoom lingo so that you can make your presentation. Please remember that both audio and video can be enabled at that point, so we can not only hear you but see you. It's better to see you, frankly, because disembodied voices presenting their projects are a little disconcerting. There's no chat or Q&A functions for this meeting. And then public comment, the applicants and the public have been required to register, as I made reference to earlier. Please indicate the project that you wish to speak on when you contact the city about this. And if you want to submit documents such as letters, which are great because they get read into the record, please submit them in advance of the meeting in accordance with the deadlines. All applications that are heard today are part of a public meeting format. If you registered and will speak during the public comments portion of the meeting, you will need to state your name and the address of your residence for the record. Those members of the public that are registered, that have registered, will be called on in order by project. Members of the public that wish to speak are encouraged to remain in the meeting for the completion of the item that you've commented on. You never know how things are going to go. You might as well stick around and find out. Staff will call on registered members of the public to speak for each project. Unregistered members of the public who raise their hand will not be called on. All right, next. Board members, please remember that when we take a vote, you'll be polled by the chair, and please respond clearly as in yay in favor or nay not in favor as I call your names. I'll reread the motion verbatim. The board member that made the motion needs to correct me if I'm off base. If a board member needs to recuse, that member will be temporarily removed from the meeting entirely and then placed back in the meeting at the start of the next agenda item. You will receive no warning on that, so please don't disappear. If the board needs to go into executive session, which we do not expect, we'll call into a separate conference line, and all audio and video for Zoom will be temporarily turned off until we're ready to rejoin the meeting, regular meeting. The staff will issue meeting results, including staff comments and board motion, to the applicant following the meeting. The results will also be posted on the city website. All right, so, and as a final reminder, these proceedings are being recorded. I meant to say, before we dive into the first item, what's the next slide? All right, before I get into this, let me recap our typical order of proceedings. First, we'll go with a brief intro from staff and then an applicant presentation. Usually those applicant presentations are about 10 minutes. If you need more time, let me know. I don't anticipate either of these two items will really require that. That will be followed by a brief period of board questions, should there be any. And then we'll go to an equivalent period of time for public comment. After public comment is concluded, then we'll hear a staff recommendation regarding the application, and then there'll be a 2-minute period, I think it's 2 minutes, for an applicant to rebut or clarify what was said during public comment or staff comments. And then at that point, everybody sits down, and then it'll be up to the board to discuss and dispense the item with a motion. All right, so shall we proceed? Agenda item number 1.
Yes, and thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, and welcome, and thank you all for being here. My name is Lawrence Courtney. I am staff architect with the Department of Planning here at the city. And the first item on the agenda is 16 Broad Street. They are requesting final approval for replacement of existing slate roof on the 3 sections with new sheathing, ice and water shield, copper trims, and Buckingham slate, and replacement of existing gutters at all locations and replacement of existing downspouts at 3 locations. This is a Category 1 structure. It's in the French Quarter, circa 1817 and 1850, the old and historic district. We have some context slides. This is the site. The actual buildings are right here. This is Broad Street. I don't know if you guys can see my cursor, but this is Broad Street. This is State. So it's right at the corner of Broad and State Streets. This is East Bay. This is from the intersection of Broad and State looking northeast. This is in front of buildings more or less looking northwest. This is looking west on Broad Street. 16 Broad is immediately on your right. This is looking east on Broad Street. The 16 Broad is right on your left. This is looking south on State Street, and 16 Broad is on your left at the end of the block there. Previous board motion was preliminary approval with additional details on plans related to board comments. And that was back in August, less than a month ago. And board comments at that time were, one board member said, as this is a Category 1 building, great care must be taken. We need considerably more information than what has been provided. There are lots of different conditions on the. We need more specific details that relate to this particular building and these particular roofing conditions, and not just what looks more like generic details. Has applicant had any analyses of stucco and mortar mixes was asked, and I think the answer at that point in time was no. And it was also asked if applicant knew the composition of the metal cornice trim, and that member summarized by saying that we simply need more details. Another member said that he agreed with those comments about more information required, as this is a Category 1 building. Staff comments from that meeting include, this is a Category 1 structure and any work must be considered carefully. It should be noted that the condition of the roofing varies across the shown locations. A more detailed evaluation of the existing conditions should be well documented, and if found to be historic, the Secretary of the Interior standards for the treatment of historic properties, as well as the National Park Service Preservation Brief number 29, the repair, replacement, and maintenance of historic slate roofs should govern. Also, it was commented, while there is no information given on the roof, the previous staff comments indicate that it is likely of Hurricane Hugo era vintage. If further investigation finds it to be historic, the roofing should remain and be repaired in place to the extent possible per the documents noted above. If removal is necessary, it should be done carefully with the reuse of as much of the existing slate roofing as possible, supplementing it with similar material. If total removal and replacement of the roof is necessary, applicant's strategy appears to be sound, but is incomplete and includes various elements not included in on the application, such as gutters and downspouts, a chimney cricket, possible removal of a roof hatch, etc., as well as information on how differences in the thicknesses of new materials will affect profiles. This will need to be evaluated as on-site and worked through in an ad hoc manner. Also, it is unclear as to who is to perform the work noted by others and how this work is to be accomplished. Staff recommendation at that time was, although information is still lacking and details must be furnished prior to work, staff is comfortable working through these details with applicant and recommends final approval with staff and board comments with final review by staff. And with that, I will turn it over to Mr. Johnston.
All right, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you again. Peter Johnston with Baker Roofing, representing Mashburn Construction, who is representing the owner of the building. The overall scope for this project has not changed from the previous meeting that we had, and the information provided in the paper or the detail sheet shown on the screen now. The detail page has been updated to show the current existing gutter locations, which include all three sections of the roof. You can see there the red line showing the existing gutter. The west side gutter over State Street actually continues on past the slate roof and connects to the, or continues on into the existing gutter that goes then over the red turn metal roof. That is the only downspout location for that side. That downspout is not being changed. That will stay in place. The east side of that larger center section has one downspout roughly in the center that is directly across from another downspout on the east side hip roof. Both of those downspouts drain into a conductor head and into a low slope roof drain. Both of those would be replaced. They are not visible from the ground. There is also one other downspout on the hip roof section at the northeast corner of it. That also drains into a low slope roof drain and is not visible from the ground. The east side of that small section in the top right corner has one downspout that drains onto the low slope roof there. That would be replaced also. That is possibly visible from the street, from East Bay Street, but I was not able to see it from the street given the trees at the time that I checked it out last week. Other details have not changed. The detail page that was originally provided are specific details to this project that were taken from measurement that we took on site. The part of the scope that says work to be done by others, we have addressed that. Mashburn is actually not going to be doing any physical work. Anything that would have to do with additional work would be masonry and or stucco. And that will be handled by our in-house restoration department. I actually was on site today with Jim Smith from our restoration department to review what we have found there. There's only that one center roof, hip roof area has bricks below the drip edge. And given the current condition, we don't see that there will be any need to replace bricks along that where the drip edge goes. There are two small cracks at each end, which may be filled or repaired and done with a Type O mortar in regards to National Park Service standards for masonry repairs. The other roof section that has stucco chimney will most likely need repairs. There are some previous repairs there done poorly, not by us, not by anybody that we know currently, but there will need to be repairs done there for the step flashing and the previous repairs, which will be done with stucco approved by National Parks or Park Service standards for stucco repairs. This is not my field or my scope. Jim Smith, who works for Baker Restoration, knows this quite well and is very familiar with these processes. So anything that would need to be done that comes up would be run through him in order to be completed. Otherwise, there's really no change. We still intend to remove all the slate and replace all the slate with new Buckingham slate for a couple of different reasons. Warranty being one, unknowns as far as what we can reuse, and then possibly costing the owner more money because we've had to buy more slate. And then overall cost, it makes much more sense to replace all of it and know that we have a warranty and a well-installed roof. As far as differences in elevations or planes, there shouldn't really be anything noticeably different. There's a 1/2-inch layer of CDX being added. That will be accounted for around one brick chimney with new step flashing and counter flashing, which is shown that detail actually right there at 16, as well as one dormer on the hip roof area that has slate on the sidewalls, but that slate will be replaced also on the sidewalls with new step flashing there as well. Overall, I believe that is all the details that we need to provide. We have good details on the valleys, drip edge attachments, counter flashings, crickets, and gutters as well. We look forward to getting this project started.
Great. Any questions from the board or staff?
You mentioned that you had someone on your staff that knew about these historic work, but the mortars, stuccos, materials need to be approved by the staff, not by your in-house person. So that needs to be submitted for approval to the staff. Peter.
Okay, we don't really have a way to get at that area right now, not having.
No, just when you get to it.
Okay, yeah, I understand what you're saying.
I had a question for city staff, actually. This is rated as a Category 1 property. Have we determined why that is? What the rationale for that rating?
I did ask Ms. Bennett about that, and she said that it was largely due to the ages of the buildings, and that there was likely something historic that happened here. We aren't quite sure what that might have been at this time.
Okay. Any other questions from the board or staff? All right, hearing none. Any public comment on this application?
No public comment on this one.
All right, what's the city's recommendation?
Well, these formulas are very similar to last times. This is a category one structure, and any work must be considered carefully. It has been noted that conditions of the roofing vary across the shown locations. A more detailed evaluation of existing conditions should be well documented as the work progresses, and if found to be historic, the Secretary of the Interior Standards, as well as the National Park Service Preservation Brief number 29, the repair, replacement, and maintenance of historic slate roofs should govern. While it is believed that the roofing is largely of Hurricane Hugo era vintage, if further investigation finds portions to be historic, the roofing should remain and be repaired in place to the extent possible per standards and brief noted above. If removal is necessary, it should be redone. It should be done carefully with the reuse of as much of the existing slate roofing as is possible, supplementing it with similar material. If total removal and replacement of the roof is necessary, applicant's strategy appears to be sound. Further details requested by the board have largely been provided. Provides staff with all conservator analyses of materials to be replaced or patched to match existing. All flashings and counter flashings are to be copper. Verify material composition of the existing metal cornice trim and use appropriate means to mitigate potential galvanic action, I think, and staining. Staff recommends final approval with staff and board comments and final review by staff.
Okay, Mr. Johnston, do you have any clarification you'd like to offer to the city recommendation?
No, I will say we had an asbestos test done on underlayments. They were not found to be asbestos containing materials for whatever that's worth as far as your age, you know, what you're looking at for age of the roofing material that's on there. There have been numerous repairs done, so there are some that look a little bit different in areas, but overall the roof is pretty much all the same slate and condition. As far as the cornice, I was looking at that today, also this afternoon. Currently, the way that the cornice is installed and the way that the current drip edge and gutter is installed, there is no actual connection between the two, which we would intend to keep with the new gutter hangers and drip edge. If it was found that it somehow was going to, we would you know, find a way to mitigate that and put a slip sheet between the two to provide or reduce the chance of reaction. But from what I can see on site, there is no connection between the two currently. All flashing, and like you said in E, all flashings are spec'd with copper. I don't think there's anything else I really need to clarify for that.
Okay. Thank you. All right, board discussion.
Do you want a motion, Jack?
Yeah, that'd be fine if you want to introduce a motion.
Make a motion for approval with final approval with staff and board staff comments and final review by staff.
This is Leon Scott. I will second that.
Okay, so we have a motion made by Mr. Metters, seconded by Mr. Scott for final approval with board comments. And, or I'm sorry, with staff comments and final review by staff. Made and seconded. Ms. Subcheck, how do you vote?
Yay, in favor.
All right, Mr. Scott,
Yay, in favor.
Mr. Metters,
Yay, in favor.
and I will vote yay in favor as well. The motion carries 4-0.
And second and last on the agenda for this evening is 480 Street requesting conceptual approval for renovation of the east portion of the building and a new plaza along the north portion. This is not rated. It's not in a specific neighborhood. It is circa 1944 to 51, as well as post 1955. It's in the old and historic district. This is a site context photo looking at the site towards the east from East Bay Street. This is the eastern portion of the building that will be renovated. The plaza is in this area right here. And this is the east portion of the building to be renovated. It is now dry cleaners. And with that, we will turn it over to the applicant.
So I've promoted Joe Schmidt to panelist. I spoke to him earlier today, and I thought he was going to be calling in, but I don't see his number on here. Joe, are you speaking on your through your Zoom account?
Am I on yet?
Yep, we can hear you.
Okay.
All right, thank you very much. Joe Schmidt, Evans and Schmidt Architects. This property is on East Bay. It's bordered by East Bay, Charlotte, and Washington Street. It is adjacent to the Gateway office building, which is a complex of two buildings on the corner of East Bay and Calhoun Street. Hold that photo right there. What you're looking at in the top photo, which shows the north elevation, this building was actually built for an electrical supply company originally, and all those bays that you see with the green panels above them are garage door bays, which does not serve this property very well all these years, because the cars that pull up to the building are at the same exact level as the floor of the building. There's no sidewalk. There was no ability to have an interaction from the pedestrian to the shops. With the advent of COVID, things have changed, and we're trying to adapt this shopping center to meet those changes in the future, bring some life back to this property. And what we propose to do, after we checked with zoning, we're removing 11 parking spaces directly up against the building. You literally pull your car bumper all the way up to the storefronts. It's not very appealing for anybody else coming into the spaces. At the same time, the dry cleaner asked to close their business, and that gave us the ability to pursue this as a plaza, pedestrian interaction plaza, where the 11 cars are being removed, and to convert the dry cleaner into 2 retail spaces. The ultimate goal here is to breathe life into this property and put in, hopefully, tenants who will support the day-to-day needs of the tenants in the office building. In other words, we are specifically going to be looking for coffee shops, small groceries, vegetables, anything, and dry cleaner again, anything that's conducive to help those tenants want to stay in that building in Gateway. So what we're doing is we're talking about, if you would flip to the panel 7, yes, 7, there you go. This is the backside from Washington. The project never, even in its best day, had a good face to Washington Street, which has become a much more popular avenue. So we will also try to create a outdoor dining courtyard if we can get a restaurant, but it will be an outdoor relaxation space for the tenants of Gateway at a minimum. And again, hopefully a coffee shop, pastry shop, something like that will happen here. And so we will create a courtyard out of that concrete and asphalt. The next objective was, let's go ahead and, since we're doing this partially for just the tenants of Gateway, but of course the whole general public, try to tie this together as one entity. We're calling it a campus. So we're going to continue the ironwork and the stucco work on the walls that are surrounding Gateway down to this property to try to unify the two properties so they look like they belong together. If you will go to panel 12. This is probably the quickest and easiest way to understand what we're talking about. You can see where we've taken out the parking spaces, and what we're going to do is we've got patterns of brick pavers to be put down in that location. Now, again, we do not have the elevation to create a normal plaza wherein we're stepping off of the sidewalk or the plaza 6 inches down onto the parking lot, because the parking lot is dead level up against the building, where you just walk right into the building. So we're actually going to have to remove the asphalt and let the brick pavers in flush with with where the asphalt is now, get a slight rise to it. But what it meant was at the outer face along the 3 arrows that say Plaza Renovation, at that location, we needed something to keep cars from jumping up and hitting anybody on our plaza. So we came up with the idea of putting in the canopy shading devices, putting them in planters, and those planters serve as our bollards, as our definition wall from the parking lot. So anybody that pulls in too quickly doesn't jump up onto our plaza, because the best condition we could possibly get is about 2.5 inches from the height of the asphalt in the rest of the parking lot and our plaza. Otherwise, we'd be tipping the water back toward the building. So that was every one of these was sequentially a generator for what we're trying to propose to do here. In the corner, inside corner there, we wanted to put in something to signify this property. This is all owned by John Rivers Foundation. They were Channel 5 and the WCSC and the radio station. They've been across the street since the inception. They were the first broadcasting company in Charleston. And so that is a cultural type piece to help draw some attention to the site and to designate this property as being part of, actually generate some questions. What is the purpose of that? Why is it there? Is it just purely sculptural? And it's just sort of a token, and we'll show it later in the presentation, a token representation of the family's business. The arrows you see, this really doesn't show it. Let's go to 14. 14, panel 14. One more, there you go. The block wall that you see, the stucco wall that you see there on the top of the screen, that is an existing wall It's stucco with those pilasters and little cast balls on top of them. We're leaving that piece of wall. We're taking out a small section of it. Here's where we're starting to replicate the fence work, the ironwork, and the stucco of the gateway down the way. It has that same X pattern. Similarly, at the in front of the bank, which is remain, it's up on the corner there to the right side of the top of your screen. This is not part of that project. That's intact, except we're proposing that fence work. That right there, correct. These are the same curb cuts coming into the property. In any case, we are changing the look of the east end of this by putting on a fixed canopy in that location and putting a parapet pop-up on that building to try to give it some prominence. That will house two different establishments. We also have a similar awning on the side of the building as to the far left on the bottom of the screen. I'm thinking there's be a better place to look at that. Well, go to 15, if you don't mind. So, a little closer. That's okay. This is jumping. That's not me. It's usually me doing this.
Okay. All right. Well, let's try something else here because it's not really wanting to stay on that slide. There you go.
It's a pretty good because it gives you a street level. You can see what I'm saying. That's literal. You're looking at the curb jump up from the brick plaza to the asphalt. It's only about 2 inches, and there's just not much more we can do with that. The nice thing we are going to get out of it with the brick plaza and removing the asphalt, it'll be a pervious surface and will be less likely for water to be getting into these shops as it's done in the past. But that's the purpose. That was the generator for those, the tent canopies. We literally put the brace on it so that we did not have to put them out at an angle and project over the parking. And there's a inference that they're almost like little sailboat sails, which we thought was a good way to include the buttress. If you will go to 16. This would be the views from Washington Street. And remember, you saw the barbed wire and so forth. Instead, we'd be cutting holes, windows in that side of the building. These would be done in aluminum, but in the same kind of pattern as the panel, the window opening panels that are on the existing building further forward to East Bay Street. Again, trying to promote the use. There's actually an existing roll-up door that's right there on the property. Is in the center of the top photo. We want to keep that door because the site is falling away toward Calhoun Street, so that is actually a loading dock and will work very well if we are successful in getting a small grocery vegetable vendor type person in there. They need that ability to have that. What we've done is put a canopy over it to help screen it, and then we're put a fin wall coming out again to help hide it. The backside there, it's an undeveloped courtyard at this time until we know who the tenants are. But what we're doing is continuing a new roof. We're taking off an existing roof that's a 1960s gable truss roof where the water is diverting back toward the dry cleaner and it's ready to collapse. So there's a shed roof. We're projecting it out until we create a canopy and some visual interest in shade and shadow on that side of the building. It's extremely bleak at the moment. Again, we've created the pop-up parapet above the 480 signage there. And just trying to, but there's no fencing whatsoever right now, except the barbed wire further down. So we're going to complete the property at the bottom of the screen to the right side there, picking up the language that's on the back side of the street. Then the back side on Gateway, it does not have the X pattern, it just has vertical ironwork, so we're repeating that. There will be a landscape package that goes along with this. There's a favor towards palmetto trees. Don't have a lot of sight, and they give a lot of quick height and shade and interest, and so it would be the table palms of what we'd be looking at. If you go to 26,
Mr. Schmidt, I trust you're reaching the end of your presentation.
I've just, if you just look at 26 and 27, it's sort of straight on views if you just didn't like it in the ISOs. A full plan is on, and maybe we leave it there, is on 25, gives you the plan of the plaza. We do not have tenants for the dry cleaner space at the moment. However, nobody's interested in being a tenant or getting other tenants in there until they know if this is a concept. So we would want to be breaking this into two phases, to work on the plaza ideas first, get the permits, get it in place, and that's going to attract the tenants. So it's very important that we come through this conceptual phase, even though we've shown you ideas of what the back building might be. Again, it might change. If it was only one tenant, we wouldn't have as many doors and so forth and so on. So with that, I will turn it back over. Thank you very much.
Okay. Yeah, absolutely. Any questions of the applicant from board or staff?
This is Luda Sobchuk. Are you leaving those, keeping those odd curved pilasters on the building?
We are. They actually they were added in the late 70s, I believe.
Right.
And they were pulling their brick laid up in a stack bond, and they were actually starting to fall away from the building. And we talked about what to do about this and what else we would do. Well, anything we did was just not. It looks like an industrial garage building. They were actually a good distraction. So instead, we brought in ramjack type people, I'm not sure which company it was, and actually had them fixed and pulled back to the building because they were falling away. They add an interest, and actually they do serve a good purpose. They give it some scale, and the little indents you see at the back edge hide the downspouts coming down the building.
Joe, it's James Metters. The antenna that you're showing on the plan, there was not an antenna in that location. It was from across the street.
It was across. It still is across the street. Correct. That's all that's left. Now we're just thinking of it as sculptural. Obviously, it serves no other functional purpose than a piece of sculpture in a plaza. What would it be? And we said, well, what else would it be? It would be something that had to do with the broadcasting business.
Any other questions? If not, do we have any public comment for this application?
Just one letter to be read.
Uh-oh, that was a letter you sent to me. And
Yeah, it should be in your email. It's also in the
Sorry.
Dropbox if it's there, or if you can access it there.
Yeah, I'll just pull it up there. I'm sorry to not be prepared for that. I apologize. I should have, here I was trying to be Johnny on the spot, and well, I'm not that. So this is from the Preservation Society, I suppose. Let me pull this up. It will eventually appear. Here we go. All right. So this is from the Preservation Society of Charleston Deer board members. The Preservation Society has had an opportunity to review the proposed plans for alterations to the one-story commercial building at 480 East Bay. We feel the proposed design is well conceived and are particularly favorable to creating a new activated seating area along the storefront, as well as altering the rear of the building to facilitate new commercial uses facing Washington Street. We write this letter to express our support for the project, which we believe will provide a significant improvement to this building and the overall context. Sincerely, Aaron Minigan, Director of Historic Preservation. All right, so sorry I was behind the 8 ball on that. There's no other public comment. Then we will move on to city comments and recommendation.
Okay. Generally, staff likes this project. Buildings on the site underwent significant change or replacement during the mid part of last century. Buildings that now exist on the site are simple in form, and they're they're primarily utilitarian functions. An existing stucco site wall appears to be in pretty good shape. The monument sign shown on sheet A0.1 will need to be submitted for review separately. Renovation of the east building. This portion of the project benefits from the simplicity of its materials and elements. Likewise, hardscaping features in this area appear to be simple, generally matching existing, and are contextually appropriate. Plaza renovation. The vertical and sunshade elements being used here bear no connection to the simple language of the existing structures and should be studied to bring the project together in a more cohesive manner. Something such, maybe something as simple as monolithic stuccoed CMU colonnade is preferred, with more typical sun shading devices such as trellis or pergola forms of more durable materials. The tower form, we really didn't understand it. So we're going to just defer to the board on that. The plaza, we like the specialty paving, planters, and wall hardscape features in this area appear to be of good design and quality. New walls generally match existing and are simple and contextually appropriate. Our recommendation is for conceptual approval for the renovation of the east building and the new site, specialty paving and planters for the proposed plaza renovation and new site walls throughout, with staff and board comments, and deferral of the plaza renovation vertical and sun shading elements for study of the general architectural direction with staff and board comments.
Okay, Does the applicant have any response to public comment or the city's comments?
I would like to add something that I hadn't mentioned before. Clearly, and I know we don't like this word, but architecturally, let's put it that way, not economically, but architecturally, this is not the highest and best use of this site. And so this project was looked at with the point of view of maybe a 5 to 10 year window that this building would remain here and wait and see what else develops based on what's happening on East Bay Street already. So we didn't really want it to, we weren't concerned about using the canvas, for instance. We knew it had a lifespan of that. The idea of bringing in other trellis type things, it just didn't seem to fit at all with the concept of this industrial nature of this. So really thought we were on a better track than the city does, but that's just an opinion, and we defer to you.
Okay, well, with that said, board discussion.
This is Luda Sobchuk. I actually like the approach of the design. I like that this really kind of utilitarian building is getting uplift with the color and lightness of the adding the metal structure, kind of nautical structure with the canvases, and bringing the animation to this and inviting to this building and entrances to the future little shops and things like that. The only thing I see that there's a sheet that number 15, the perspective. You have the structure of those canvases, supporting canvases, and they're kind of in the same level as the existing canopies, the awnings. How do you reconcile that? It seems like it's too much of that together. So I don't know if this needs to be looked at again, or if your canvas, new canvas structure needs to be higher, so because you're protecting the windows there, obviously. So that's kind of one thing. I think bringing that sculptural element is also plus to animate that plaza, creating the plaza. And I also have a question, is there any possibility to add any trees on the parking to have it even more together, parking and those structures? That's kind of it.
Am I on responding?
Yeah, go ahead and respond to the question about the trees, if you don't mind.
Yes. What they want to do is plant an avenue of about 20-foot high palm trees along East Bay, along that fence line there, to create a foreground. The lot is configured in such a way, and working with zoning for any site in downtown Charleston, which has the same amount of retail mix, we couldn't lose more than 11 spaces. So we don't really have an opportunity to do any planting within the lot, but definitely want to do it around the perimeter. As for the, I'll call them sales. As for the sales, we've done this down on King Street years ago. Right now it's AW Shucks. And it's hard to get the computer to render it right, but it's amazing what happens when you take them. They're never flat. You take them and distort them and pick up one corner, and you get all these interesting views as the light and air goes through. The higher we kept putting them to try to make it show up more, the more we were getting in conflict with that, I'll call it the parapet up there, the signage parapet at the top of this building. But I think there's some room to play with that to give it a little bit more slope. The biggest way to get the interest, though, is you think of it as a flat plane, and then you start tipping one corner, and the distortion in a triangle is very interesting, how that works. So it creates a lot of interest for the eye. The reason we were so positive on doing this versus trellises and so forth is we wanted this to look festive and you know, outdoor dining like, and more like a street fair, if you will, as much as we could in what used to be a parking lot. So thank you.
Yeah, and that's how I perceive this design too. So thank you.
All right, any other board comment?
Yeah, Jay, I got, Joe, I appreciate the sentiment of the tower, but it would seem to me that that would go across the street where it used to go, and you know, not on this property. But I get why he would be interested in that. And I think if your goal was to design this for 5 to 10 years, wait to see what happens, tear it down, you know, do something bigger. I understand that also. This as you're driving down East Bay Street, this is, I mean, it's going to be prominent. I mean, even though it is a garage, it's still in your face as you're traveling south. And
Right.
I agree with the city that while I personally like the sales, I'll use that term also. I'm not sure their application in this context is right for me, because I like it for exactly the reasons that you're talking about, but I'm not sure that I see it at this location. So I'm kind of mixed on it. But otherwise, thank you and your client for doing something with that space.
Thank you.
All right, I'll hop in quickly and say that I totally understand the you know, the sort of scope and context of a refresh like this to a building typology that really doesn't belong in the historic district, but yet here it is. You know, this model of refreshing an existing property is not foreign to Charleston. This is happening all over the Upper Peninsula, and under the same sort of economic context. So we do understand that. I'm actually fine with this proposal. I know, you know, in situations like this, I think about, well, are we doing any harm to the historic fabric of Charleston with a proposal such as this, or are we doing any harm to the building itself? And I don't think either one is true. I think it's a pretty benign application, and I'm completely fine with it. Any other comments or a motion?
No, this is Leon. I think it's well done, and I'm in agreement with the board's comments. Everyone, ditto. I think it looks fantastic. So I'm fine. That's it.
And I'm going to add again, this type of approach to the addressing the issue with really boring building in a sense is done all of time in you know, historic cities and through Europe, and it's very successful actually. It draws people to it rather than otherwise. So it's nothing wrong with location to have something like that. And in the end, it is also conducive to the fact that it could be replaced in another 5 years with something new approach. So anyway, I'm really supporting this application right now.
I agree.
Okay, do we have a motion?
Okay, Jay, this is Leon Scott. So I make a motion for conceptual approval for the renovation of the East Building, new site, and deferral on the plaza renovations.
Okay, so that's
Pending staff approval.
What?
Well, so it seemed like from the board discussion that there was some consensus about the plaza renovations, which include all these little vertical elements and sunshades, as being acceptable. If that is the sort of tenor of the board, then that would probably point more towards a conceptual approval with staff comments rather than a deferral.
Then that I'm with that's the conceptual approval for the project, for the site and the plaza.
Okay. All right, so we have a motion for conceptual approval of the project. Do I have a second?
I second.
Okay, with the
Judah
motion
Subchuk, second.
with the motion made and seconded, I'll call the roll. Mr. Metters, how do you vote?
Nay.
All right, Ms. Subcheck.
Yay. Approval.
Okay, Mr. Scott.
Yay, in favor.
All right, now we'll vote yay in favor. So the motion carries 3-1. All right, thanks. And that's our last item, right, Mr. Cordy?
Yes, yes, indeed.
All right, well,
Thank you all.
thanks so much, everyone.
Thank y'all.
See you all in 2 weeks.
Okay.
Actually, 3 weeks. We have a little break.
Oh, well, bless you. I'm so glad to hear that. All right, see you all then.
All right, bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.